What's up everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we're taking a look at Yuri on Ice, which was not only the most talked about anime from the previous season, but was also the most popular series from 2016, which is quite the feat because we had other great shows coming out such as JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Diamond is Unbreakable, and also Sakamoto Desu Ga, which are my personal favorites from the entire year. And I'm just going to be honest with you right up front here, Yuri on Ice is not my type of show, and the only reason that I wanted to review this was in a sense because it had gotten such a large amount of popularity, but also because I felt like I needed to give this show a fair review. So despite the fact that this is not my type of show, it's still something that I wanted to come into and see how good of a story it actually was, and just put my feelings aside in that. So Yuri on Ice is a story that follows Yuri, who is a professional figure skater who starts off. Now this is something where it actually differs from a lot of the sports anime that you see, because Yuri starts off in the beginning of the series where he is already a professional skater. Now when you look at a lot of the other sports anime out there, you're going to get people that are not even training for the sport that they want to do, or maybe they're still at the beginner's level of it, so there's a lot of improvement to be had. But with Yuri on Ice, on the other hand, we have Yuri, who is actually really good in the beginning, so he's not doing very well, and the reason for that is that he lacks confidence in himself. So the story's conflicts mostly revolve around Yuri's internal struggles, which in the beginning of the story we have basically his incredibly low self-confidence, but as we watch it expands to encompass other aspects of his life as well, such as how he's a 23-year-old man and he hasn't yet discovered what love means to him, and considering that he is a figure skater, and in the story of Yuri on Ice, a lot of the performances that these characters will do will actually reflect on their mood, so it's important for him to understand what love is for him to be able to win the gold medal. And he's actually not out there alone. He has a few competitors, but his main opposition here is another character who goes by the name of Yuri as well, who is 15 years old and from Russia as well. So the show differentiates between the characters by referring to the Russian Yuri as Yuri-O. Now, the reason why Yuri got into figure skating was because he was inspired by this prodigy of a skater out of Russia who is Victor, and he totally adores and idolizes Victor. He's got all of his posters, and he's really just pushing himself so hard to be on that same level as him. And in the beginning of the series, in episode 1, he is failing at the Grand Prix final because he doesn't have enough confidence in himself. So he goes back home, and when he's in the rink by himself and nobody's watching him, he is flawless. He completes Victor's performance flawlessly. Of course, Victor sees this because somebody's got everything's on YouTube nowadays. Like, there's a camera everywhere now. And he, long story short, gets uploaded to YouTube, and Victor sees this, coming to his house to actually train him in Japan, and that is where the story begins. Now, Yuri's struggles with confidence are not his only problem here, because considering that he has Victor, this world-class skater, over at his house training him, there are going to be a few people that are jealous of this, namely being his main rival, Yuri-O, who comes from Russia, storms in his house and demands to be trained by him as well, and this shortly becomes a competition. Now, Victor understands the potential of his new students and also understands their weaknesses as well, assigning them to performances which actually target their personal weak spots. And this is something which is going to require the two characters to do some soul searching in order to complete, and this is going to be the competition to win Victor as a trainer. Now, despite the fact that Yuri on Ice is a sports anime, or at least is heavily revolved around sports, there is a direct correlation between how the skater feels about themselves and how well they perform on the ice. And this doesn't just apply to our protagonist, this applies to everyone else in the series as well. And naturally you would think, okay, so if you don't feel good about yourself, you're not going to go out there and you're not going to do a good job. But the thing is, you're going to need more than just self-confidence to go out there and win a gold medal. You need to train, you need to do these moves and stuff, you need to learn new moves, but all of that we see is either done off camera or just doesn't need to happen, because to the character's defense, the story begins where they are already professional skaters, so they can technically do every move that's required of them, but they basically have to go through and complete themselves before they can actually complete their performances. And this is something which I feel actually does a good job of fleshing out some of the characters, because we get to see some of their backstories. Like with Yuri, for example, they did a good job with him. We see a lot of the things that he likes, that he doesn't like. We see some of the issues with the rivalries that he has. We see basically going back into his past and everything that he aspired to be in order to, you know, just get on the same level as Victor. And then we see with Yuri-O as well, there's some issues with his mom in the childhood. I'm not going to go into that because that is technically technically a spoiler if I were to give any more information than that, but I felt like they were two fairly well fleshed out characters, and I enjoyed the rivalry that they had. So some of the issues I have with Yuri on Ice do not come from the characterization of the main characters. The side characters, on the other hand, we're going to get to them in a bit, and as far as the development, like I said, it's fine. The characters develop naturally through the progression of the competition. The problem that I have here is from like just basic character interaction, and I mean, I'm just going to address the elephant in the room here. Yuri on Ice is a gay anime, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we have Yuri and Victor who are falling in love with each other, and they're basically just coming to terms about how they feel about each other here, and then we have, it's not like right in your face, the characters aren't saying they're gay or anything like that, and it's not like that, it's much more subtle.
This is on love Eros, and the theme of it is sexual love. I want to know what Eros is to you.
Yeah, sure, no problem, I can do that.
Seduce me with everything you have.
And I feel like there's a strong rift between the interaction of Victor and Yuri and the bond that they share here, and also the gratuitous fan service that the show features. So on one hand, you have these characters which are coming to terms with themselves and basically finding out new things about themselves, but at the same time, Victor has no problem with walking in the room with his nuts hanging out, butt-ass naked, asking Yuri to take pictures of him to upload on the internet, while there's 15-year-old Yurio just hanging out over there in the corner watching it too. I mean, it's stuff like that just comes out of nowhere, really, and it really detracts from the story that is being told, because I mean, I know a lot of people are going to complain about me finding fan service to be an issue, but it's an issue here just as well as it's an issue in a lot of the big titty anime where the titties are just flopping around and there's like motorboating and stuff going on there. So it's equally an issue here because it detracts from the story that's being told between Yuri and Victor here, and I mean, it cheapens the moment, in all honesty. Now, I know what some people are probably going to say here is that maybe the homosexual innuendo does not define the type of bond that Yuri and Victor share with one another, and maybe they're just really good friends, but yeah, it kind of does, because they are kissing, they are cuddling when they are close to each other. In the second half, they're going to be all up on each other. There's a time in the restaurant where Victor is just stripping all of the clothes off of Yuri in front of everybody. There's the credits of episode 10 when they are pole dancing with each other halfway naked, and yes, that is kind of gay. And even if all of those things that I just listed off were simply implied, if all of that is just implied and is simply a form of fan service, then it does detract from the story that is being told with the characters of Victor and Yuri, because it's doing something to excite the audience, to insinuate that there may be something further that is happening off screen, for example, and that is something which I feel just detracts from the story. And another issue I had with the character interaction was that sometimes you would have these crazy outbursts of emotions where characters would just get angry over nothing or really excited over nothing. However, I will say, thankfully, that a lot of the issues that I had in regards of that, like I said in my first impressions video, if you've seen that, are mostly isolated to the first few episodes of the series, and thankfully a lot of that doesn't continue. I mean, it does, but it's not as bad as it was in the beginning. So it is an issue, but it's not really that big of a deal. Now, aside from the character interaction, I feel like the second half of the show spends too much time focusing on some of the side characters, because these characters have little to no impact on the story, and there's just too many of them. I feel like, okay, so it's fine that they include them just because this is a competition which requires several other characters, but we don't need to spend so much time going into the details about how one character is in love with his sister, how one character just loves to come when he gets on ice.
I think I'm going to come.
We don't need to get into some of these things. We could just narrow it down to maybe 2 characters, and that would be it, because I felt like all that these characters really did to add to the story was just go over and just gloss over the fact that the performances that these characters are doing are just showing like how they feel about themselves, basically showing their personality and whatnot. And I feel like it was a redundant message that we didn't need to spend so much time on these characters with. Now let's talk presentation. How well do they animate these performances? I think they did a great job there. The animation was fluid in regards to that. However, a little bit of a nitpick that I have is that sometimes when you're watching the characters skate, the faces lose a little bit of detail, but that's not really a big deal. As I said, it's just a nitpick. And in the defense of the show, I do hear people saying that they reuse a lot of animation, but that wasn't a problem to me at all, because I understand the characters are doing the same performances over and over again, but at the same time, they're not the same every single time. You have characters which will fall down, their hand will scrape the eyes, and they'll lose points for doing things like this. So it is mostly the same every time, but it is not identical every single time. It's just like within Yuri in April, for example, when they had the piano recitals, or whatever you would call them, they would just play the same song over and over again, but there would be little small things that you would see different within each performance that they had there, and the same thing goes for Yuri in April as well. Aside from that, the character designs were great. Talking about the music and overall audio, this had great music as well. I really can't say that I prefer the type of music here, because there's a lot of classical or pop music that we'll hear from the characters. The opening was very catchy. I really like the opening to it. Now, as far as the voice acting goes, I had to watch this anime twice, because this was one of the shows that I didn't want to watch, so I watched it once just to see what it is, and I watched it again just to take myself out of it, and just take a closer look at the elements of the story itself for the review, because I know the first time around I probably would have been more negative about it, and the second time around I appreciated certain aspects of it a little bit more. So I watched it once with a sub, and I watched it once with the dub, and both of them are great. I would recommend checking it out with the dub or the sub, however you feel like watching. So all in all, I thought it was a fairly well executed story, but it is definitely not for everyone. If you enjoyed some of the things which I mentioned in this review, then you should definitely check it out, and if not, then hey, it is just not for you. Let me know your thoughts about Yuri on Ice in the comments section below. If you enjoy the review, be sure to subscribe, and also check out the Patreon if you'd like to support the channel and also future videos as well. Thanks for watching. See you next time.